We're gonna start with a super easy one. By the way, Elise, you guys are just like raving down there. Every video I get from Riptide is like hardcore house music.
Oh, yeah, that's probably Ben.
Holy smokes. I
Yeah.
don't think you guys can hear sound, but the song in the background of this is like kind of entertaining. All right, let's kick this off. Got just butterfly pull up. Easy one to start today.
Is she like learning them now?
No, she got him.
Oh, she was just going small to big, I guess.
She's
No,
very
you're
rigid.
you're on the right track.
I mean,
Positionally,
her
I think it's
tension
great.
is phenomenal. I
Yeah,
feel she's very rigid.
there's definitely more good stuff here than anything bad at all. But the bad in this video is bad.
She
It's
doesn't
an
use her
easy one.
hips,
Don't
really.
overthink it. Well,
Her,
yeah, she's. I don't think she really like needs to. I think she has the ability where she can just snap back from like the hollow to arch and generate enough momentum, and like that ability to do that's going to add some speed to her pull up, and it's going to help keep the tension like you're noticing. Keep it simpler, guys. Keep it simpler. They're
I
all
think
the same. You're overthinking it. There's not a single pull up done in this video.
no,
Every
absolutely.
single one of
That's
these
why
is
I
no
was
reps.
thinking like, is she just learning them?
Yeah, that's why I said you're on the right track. It was you said
Yeah.
small to large. So looking at her movement, I just want to start this one off because it's so simple. It's almost like hard to find. So much good stuff. Like if you when you initially look at her, like you can see the hollow body pretty well. She's very tad slightly pikey with the hips, so it's not a perfect hollow. But I'm not going to mess with that. I think that's great. There's a lot of tension, like Elise talked about. She's got this perfect little circle going, but she's shy on all of it. Like I think at best, maybe her chin gets parallel with the bar. She's not actually hitting good reps. Um, she sent it to me, and that was her question. She was like, "Are these reps?" In the video, I don't know who's coaching this, but in the video, you hear the coach go, nice work," and like the movement is so nice that I don't think whoever I can't tell whose voice it is, whoever was coaching doesn't take the second and go, "You need to get a little higher." Like they didn't look.
Ben.
I can't tell. It almost sounds like JT, but I think it is Ben. I really can't tell by the voice. You would think I would know JT after all these years. But I think it's so pretty that like obviously doesn't matter who the coach is, knows that if they're looking at these reps, they know it's going to be a no rep. But I think it's so nice that it's kind of like just looking past what the negative could be, and it kind of gets missed. So just using the point of like when we're looking at movement, so like look for negative things, and if things are so nice, give yourself and start to work down that checklist like we talked about.
I love the same thing that Diana said. Like it was so egregiously short that I thought she was just practicing the actual flowing part of it and not even trying to get the chin up.
Like trying to do reps. Yeah, it does. It really does almost look like she's just trying to like work on perfecting the butterfly and not worry about reps. I don't think that's the case because she asked me,
Yeah.
are these good reps? Like she was questioning herself, were they good when she looked at this video? I will say, looking at this, I would say that was real short, but I think she gets a little higher. She gets to a point where she's got a couple that are
There's
like
one that's like,
borderline.
yeah.
You get some that I think like that one's probably like chin's lined up, and it's lined up back there, and then obviously it falls short here. It's a almost a good job in a way because she only needs an incremental adjustment, maybe an inch higher, to have some good clear chin over reps. Versus like you ever watch people that their chest to bar and their chin over bar are almost like the same thing, and the degree of difference is very minimal. So she's not gonna overwork. I think that's something to also just think about as athletes, to not pull so high and it's so clear that I'm actually doing more distance than I need to do. When you look at it from like a competition competitive point of view, you're just killing yourself, wasting more energy. So just a small adjustment here. They were technically good reps yet. But other than that, nothing bad to say. She's even pointing her toes.
Damn gymnasts.
Yeah, it looks good. By the way, I hate that bar. Instead of use that bar, pinch your fingers. And
So
personal
I gotta
experience.
admit that when I do my butterflies, if I don't think about squeezing my butt and keeping my legs straight, I feel so floppy and I can't even get up there. And
Yeah, because every
What?
time you're going, you have it's a total loss of tension. So it's like it's like if you squat and you get to the bottom,
Right.
you relax every time, and then you get tense and try to go again. How heavy does that feel?
Right,
Same
but
thing on a pull up.
but I remember you telling me like, don't overthink it, your shapes and stuff. But if I don't think about it, then I can't, it's almost like I can't do it.
Don't
So-
overthinking it in that statement is like more of a statement that you've done so many butterflies in your life that you don't have to think about them so aggressively that it's going to hinder your movement. Like you have to have I'm not saying don't think about what you're doing, but like you have to have some sense of trust in that you know how to do butterflies now, and you maybe just have one little thought, not like trying to piece together all of the components of the movements while you're moving. It's like a baseball player can't think about his swing when he's at bat facing a live pitcher. Like he's got to trust all the swings he took in batting practice to now come into play in that situation. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So maybe the statement like don't think about it or don't overthink. I don't mean like you can't think of anything, but like you can't try to dissect at that point in time.
Yeah.
And I would say like Justin, for you, that's similar to you and like doing your cleans. Like you're almost still dissecting as you're moving versus letting yourself flow. And to your point, D, like I think about putting my toes together. So like there is thoughts that happen, but what's happening up here, I'm not thinking about. That's like second nature.
Yeah, I think more of what's going on top. So now I'm trying to like retrain myself to think about what's going on the bottom so I can use my legs to get up there.
And
But
like
also now I have to focus on how to regrip. So it's very hard because
all right,
regripping is
so
not easy. So
if,
I have to like go back and like regrip on a box and try to get that
If-
motion to then go again.
if you were talking to an athlete, what would you advise to do?
Between both of those things that I'm thinking about, just do what I'm doing, think about one and then do the other. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, let's get one down and then let's move on to
Yeah.
the next thing. Yeah, instead of stressing so hard getting two things at once and then it becomes too much. It's when we talk about coaching, we talk about selectively ignoring faults. And the reason we're going to selectively ignore faults, not because we don't want to fix them, but because it's going to be information overload. And like, we're not going to get anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just focus on one and don't feel all this high stress for it. And then eventually you'll notice you're like, oh shit, I did it. I didn't even really have to think about it too much. And now it's time to move on to something else. Or it just becomes like very easy.
Mm-hmm.
This is another interesting video. I would say this falls more into the category of like analyzing.
I like how he's staying so short and he is very quick.
Oh yeah, he's a freaking
But
savage on box step
He
ups.
could even be more efficient if he would already turn around on top of the box.
That could be part of it. Your head is for sure in the right track here. So like first thought about this, like Russell has no issues with box step ups. Like he's got 250s. He makes that. I think I could race him if I held no dumbbells. Like you give me a 20 and I probably can't go that fast. Like this is just ridiculously easy to him. They're practicing for comp, so they have box step ups, and obviously he's the superstar when that movement comes up. So to your point, you're on the right track, and that's what I am looking for. How do we make this more efficient? Getting more efficient, he's probably going to move quicker. So he does. He faces one direction. He kind of starts his turn, but he hasn't fully done it. I think if he cockeyes himself, he could get the turn done more. But let's think even deeper.
But he's using the same leg every time.
Yeah, because he's sprinting. Not that I would want him to do that. I talked to him about that after. He has the ability to use the other leg fine.
Yeah, because I mean, I would just like even just face lateral, so you step up, you
Boom.
cross over to put the other leg down, and then
Yeah,
Face
it's
lateral.
like it's foot placement that I would play
Yep.
with.
So initially, like with the lateral, it's going to be weird to him. But
Yes.
because he shows me the ability that like the strength is no issue with the step up. He's even able to keep that leg loaded and stay low, and he's fine. And he has really good speed. He'd be a great candidate to shift to lateral.
Yep.
Whatever leg is closest to the box, step. I would have him just think of that first. So whatever's closest, step on the box. And then from there, then I would start to work on where the foot's going to cross. Some people like to cross the foot behind. Some people
Yep.
like to cross the foot
front.
in front.
Yep.
So depending on where they like to cross, I'm going to have him go leg closest to the box. And then if he likes to cross behind, toward the top of the box, he likes to cross the front toward the back of the box. So he has like targets to think of and doing.
Yep.
I think by giving him those targets would help him get the crossover and get more comfortable quicker. But like, can you imagine? Go ahead, Elise.
No, I was gonna say he doesn't get dizzy. I mean, I get dizzy just watching him do that.
That's the other part of this. When he came off, he laughed and said, "I'm dizzy as shit," because he's going on one leg and he's
Yep.
literally spinning the entire time. He actually ends up getting inhibited, not by what's happening physically at all, but because he's like, I literally have to stop because I'm dizzy. And like, there was 50 reps in this workout. He
Right.
has the ability, I think, to rip a quick 50 reps, but not spinning. He's gonna have to come off.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is just when I saw him do this, I was like, I have to get a video. Great example of like when you get to the point or you see an athlete or you feel it and you're like, man, these are just getting ridiculously easier. Like asking yourself, how can we take it to this next level? And the next level not necessarily being giving him heavier dumbbells, but how do we
More efficient.
get more efficient? And sometimes getting more efficient means more complexity, because I would say a lateral step up does get more complex because the foot placement starts to matter more. I don't know, have you guys ever tripped on one of those? It's not fun.
Yeah.
I tripped filming. This is just funny.
Waterpalooza.
I don't have anything else to say about Russell here besides that. Yes, I did follow Waterpalooza. We all saw that video and the remix. That was good. I took it off my Instagram because I figured employers didn't need to see that.
Huh.
No, I tripped filming a Technique Tuesday. I think
Oh,
that's
did you
probably
really?
worse. Yeah, I was filming like where to step the feet, and I even drew my feet on the box so I could take a picture of it, and just was filming it and like not uber focused and just tripped myself. So it does add some good. That was on film too. I didn't show anybody that one. It does definitely add some complexity to it. All right, and still your toe to release. I think this is really good. Still play it a few times. I know you so well. I didn't have to look at it to know what I was going to cue you on.
Huh.
What would you guys say? I'm going to give you a hint if you're not entirely sure, because it's not like you look at the movement and go, "Oh, this is egregious." It's not at all. So where I'm going to go with it is like, let's look at the difference or think about the difference between a kip on a bar, that static implement, and then what a kip on the rings is more or less going to be like. Like that's what clues you off into how do we get these more efficient. Um, any of you want to explain that difference? What rings would be?
Maybe if she would let herself like flow a little bit more back and forth. Like it looks like
Yeah.
she on the
Cutting
way,
it off.
right? She's cutting it, but like on the way back, she has more room to go back, like further back, and that'll
I agree.
allow her to bring her legs like easier coming up. Like I do
Yeah,
like that
exactly. There's gonna
flick,
be more inertia and more momentum.
right?
I don't mind the flick at all.
No, I
Like, you
like
mean at
the
the very
flick.
top.
When I do the flick, I think I go faster with the flick. Um, but yeah, like just make, I guess, bigger kips. Let yourself swing a little bit more through.
That's exactly what I like. Because like looking at her legs, like you're keeping them pretty together. Something
Yeah.
else you see with people is like when they're getting here, they start to like split apart. So you're keeping fairly good tension.
Yeah.
Trying to pause it there. So that's there. I just think you have a lot more to go with, and having more like Deanna's talking about with the swing is like your full torso is starting to get like close to parallel to the floor.
Right.
So it becomes like if you were swinging like a little kid, that is the difference on the rings. And I think that backswing is like when you watch people try to attempt muscle ups, it's like they do this, and it's like they're getting like 40% of the kick they could have. And it's
Right.
like ring muscle ups already one really hard, especially if you're doing it in a workout and you have reps. So we need to maximize that every single time. So yeah, I would just let yourself flow. Like I think of if I took myself off the ring and I could hold myself and then just place me on the floor, I would look like I was doing an archer or Superman on the floor. And I could take that and I could literally put myself on the ring, and then there's the whole flick forward back into a hollow with all that momentum. Obviously, for a toed ring, you don't need that much momentum, but in this workout, and for reference, Justin, it's 50 toes to the ring in a set. It's a lot. So, like, is it going to be fast? Probably not. Is it going to be faster than a lot of breaks? Absolutely, yeah. Because if we're able to hold on by being more efficient, that would be a big difference.
So this
Um,
I was fatigued at this point. I was probably past rep 30. Cause I did like,
Getting real.
yeah, I did my 3 sets of 10 and I was like, okay, cool. Then I got on, I was like, oh, I
Oh
can't do
no.
5. Yeah. I was like, I'm in trouble.
And I would say, like in those 3 sets of 10, like I think that was a smart breakup for this. It's just like it's like that open workout, that last open workout. If you don't do 10 thrusters, the chest to bars are better. Even though 10 thrusters is very doable, it's gonna like accumulate, and it's because it's chippers are very like compounding. Um, it would be interesting if you had more patience and you used more of that momentum and ability with the kick if the set to 10 could have remained. That would be like my question. But yeah, definitely let yourself fly here. And I'm with D, like, I like the little flip because it does speed it up in the end. I have no issue with that as well. I think it's a good, having that tuck and kick and then also having that real pikey. I think those are both really good things to develop on toes to ring, toes to bar. Because you can change the style when it's started.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, you guys have anything to add on this? I don't agree.
I would say, I mean, maybe you had to look up because you aren't swinging that much, but to kind of keep your head a little bit more neutral, looking straight ahead.
Yeah. I
rather-
was just making sure that I was like getting my feet to
Yeah,
the
there.
ring, touch the rings. I wasn't trusting myself.
Toes to rings make me nervous because they do blow up my grip. And occasionally I do pick my own fingers.
Oh my God.
And if you guys remember, I forgot what year, 2018 games, Kari Pierce face planted. You guys remember that?
Don't remember that.
If you're bored today, it's like I think it's the 2018 games. type in Kari Pierce Total Rings, or if you just typed in Kari Pierce Total Rings, it'll probably come right up. But yeah, she's doing these big, it's like sets of 30 or something like that. And she goes into the swing. Actually, let me see if I can pull it up right now, because it would be a good example of what I'm talking about for you. And we would just get a little fun kick. But she goes into the swing and she's like in this hollow or this arch position. She literally face plants. We'll get a good example too. Hopefully it just comes right up. With the toes of the ring too, I like using them obviously because it's core, it'll help the toes of the bar. But like the kip work we're talking about, I do think it helps like teach that for the ring muscle up. All right, I think they removed it off YouTube, but let me share this with a good example. Watch her here. Actually, almost starts to get like horizontal a little bit. You guys see what I mean? I think with a ring muscle up, that back here, that back kick, which is back here, would be more. It would get even more horizontal. But, I'll do it one more time. It almost becomes like more swinging than like a lot of like muscular activation as well.
Yeah. But I also think like she's so flexible, it looks
flawless.
Super easy. And remember, she's a gymnast.
right. Like she doesn't have to fly that much to get to
Yeah,
that.
that's why I made the comment like if it was a ring muscle up, there would be a lot more there with it. Because like if you're talking gymnast, their ability to flow through that and like our ability to flow through that is going to be very different.
Oh, excuse me.
All right, we got. Sorry, I didn't clean my phone here evidently, and it was a little dirty, but you can see just fine. Yeah, bar muscle up.
Ooh, that's Jason.
Chicken
Yeah.
wing. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. He does like a one hip kip. And that's the side he does the
Nailed
chicken.
it. That's exactly why he's chicken.
Yeah, because he's he's
That one's
better.
That
Yeah.
one's weird to me because he actually stays pretty balanced, and then at the last, like he's good, and then at the last
Yeah.
second, he's like, "Let me throw that like cha-cha hit there," and now he turns and then he chicken wings. The second one you see, I think he spins it early.
But that also may be because he's so
Yeah.
used to chicken winging that he automatically thinks he has to chicken wing. Like that's his natural body response to
Like
doing.
he's stuck in the habit.
Yeah.
So obviously you guys know the fix here, right? If he's not going to chicken wing, he needs to stay square, and he does keep his feet together through like all of this.
Yeah.
So most people in this whole region here, you already see them being crooked. Their hip is already leading the way. One of the feet are already off, so you can easily identify where the chicken wing is coming from. For him, he's very unique because he doesn't actually turn until he's up here, and then he does it and gets over. So for him, I actually feel like he probably would be a little trickier to coach and correct this than the person that's doing it early. The person that's doing it early, you just got to be like, hey, keep your feet together. And if you keep the feet together, their hips typically going to stay square, and the problem's done and the problem solved. For him, I think D, you might be right that he may be so ingrained in doing this that it's become like part of his like skill and training.
Yeah.
What would you, let's say you cued him and it didn't work, what would you do next?
I guess I would put him in a low bar, like put a barbell a little bit lower and have him go like from the floor. That way he doesn't have to really think about that swing and he can just think about the turnaround. Either that or, I mean, just some accessory
think that
work
could
too.
work.
But I think
I-
that would be, yeah, I think that would be,
So for him, the lower bar on the floor, or if it was maybe like a jumping, kind of like
Yeah.
a jumping bar muscle up or something
Right.
like that. I do think that would be the accessory work that you could do for it. I don't know. I don't think it would be like any kind of like strengthening accessory work. Like, I think he's got the tools. It's more of just skill based. So that's definitely one of them.
the one thing I don't like really about the jumping one is that I think you're depending so much on your jump that you're not focusing more on your
On what-
hip, I guess,
On what you're doing like,
with
through
the lower
movement.
part of your body. Yeah. So that's why I think like the lower bar would be better if he was just like kind of sitting on the floor and then pop his hips up and then, turn around.
I think I know what you're talking about. That one could be tricky because that one is a pretty tough like skill work. If I'm thinking of the right thing, I think starting him off, like let's say it was the easier one in your concern. It was kind of like just a low bar and kind of like a jumping thing. I would actually start him with like not even the turnover yet, but like an ab to bar like type pull. So he really has to press and bring himself in. And then I would eventually let him turn over. And the way you could fix like where like the use of the hip there, because like you're right, like you could just jump really hard and be okay and get there and not really develop the skill, but it's more like what his arms are doing is what I care about. I would take him to like a hip to bar or like an ab to bar, like
Yeah.
actual pull up like this. Like he's not worrying about the turnover, and I just want him to get very tall and stay square and be there. So it's like he can feel this like not physical skill work, and then you could take that and make it into this physical skill work where he is going to need his hip. He is going
Right.
to need to have the same hip
But-
as the bar muscle up.
But then like his first one, he did bring his hips to the bar. He just turned around. see?
Sideways.
Exactly. So
Right,
that's
so
why
he's-
I think it's more the turnaround than him just bringing the hip.
Oh,
I mean, it may be a
mm.
combination of both.
It's probably a combo of both because if he doesn't do that there, like he's already twisted and he's
Yeah.
about to turn over and he stays square and he keeps the same elevation, then he doesn't need to do that, right?
He's probably trying to turn around too early too.
Very likely there. So if he did like a kipping ab to bar, I also am gonna have the ability if I'm working with him to spot him too. So we can take that movement and I can give him this little bit of an to keep him to keep him mentally in the spot where he doesn't feel the need to throw that hit. Because that's what we essentially have to get out. And I think someone like Jason, like he's pretty athletic, he picks up things really fast. He just may need to recognize also that he's like, oh, I am playing high enough. I don't need to do that like Hail Mary hip throw. And once he recognizes that, he may have the confidence to not do it too. On the floor with the bar thing that you're talking about, absolutely could work as well. Like that wasn't a wrong. or
Yeah,
bad-
but
bad
definitely
answer at
you're
all.
right. Like he needs to gain more confidence in bringing his hips to the bar so that he realizes, oh, I'm getting there. I don't need to do the chicken wing.
Yeah, because I think especially like no matter what route you take there, he's gonna need to feel and experience that
Yeah.
at some point anyway. And if he doesn't, if he just does, a jumping hip to bar, jumping turnover, or like sitting on the floor, when he goes into that actual application, he's still gonna have the thought that here we go, here's the real one, and he may divert back to it.
Yeah.
So I just think it may be a little bit of building confidence there as well.
I mean, what if you tell him too, what if you just tell him to keep his, like, squeeze his feet? Cause look at how when he does the hip.
This is
so
whole foot
together-
moves too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what if you just tell him, just like, put something between his feet, be like, do not let this object fall. With
That's
that,
that's for sure the first thing I would do is squeeze the feet together. And if that didn't work, then I would go to the accessory stuff. Cause yeah,
Yeah.
he's like so good, like through all of this. It's
Yeah.
great, it's great, it's great. And then it's like,
Right.
what happened?
Yeah.
Like if you stilled these and you stilled that, stilled that, you stilled that, you stilled that, and then all of a sudden, I showed you that picture. It's like he decided to break dance all of a sudden. It's crazy. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that would be my first thing, just my fast cue, especially if it's like in class. And then if that doesn't work, then I would go to those accessory type skill based things there too.
You should tell him that to take a video of him holding something in between his feet and trying to do a muscle up.
See what happens. I'll edit this and I'll clip this and I'll send it over. Because he, in up in his full defense, this was at the end. He had just done a Metcon. It had a heavy barbell. Just did a bunch of pull-ups also. So like he wasn't fresh doing this. Like this was like racing a clock last second, throwing some Hail Marys going down. So he may not even actually have this problem without fatigue. It may just be a problem that starts when the fatigue sets in.
Yeah.
But I'll clip this and send it to him and like just pick his brain on it a little bit and see. And if it is something that happens every time, we'll start with what he said and we'll do the feet together and just go from there and see if it works. Because I think he would have the ability to really just crank
Yeah.
muscle up and just fly out. Oh, okay. Let's look at the squat. And Justin, I believe you elevate the feet in this at some point, right?
Yes. Halfway through it changes.
Crazy. It's crazy the difference that makes.
yep.
My favorite thing is heel elevated squats because I finally feel like I can squat nice. Squats are gonna go something. All right. This is a fun one because this is one that's like we're the same. Like this is gonna take some time to dissect and put in some like work, like training that's also neurological. Looking at this just first initial squat,
She initiates with her knees, not her hips.
yeah, I think if she sends the hip back more, and even like in her case, like I'll over exaggerate this personally because I have such a hard time. And like if you look at the feet, like we have the same exact bottom when it comes to the feet. When I over exaggerate my hips, and what's funny is I feel like I'm over exaggerating, and I'm probably actually not if I looked at it on a video. It's a lot easier. So I would make sure she sends those hips back first. You can give her that verbal cue, and if she just like still has a hard time because it can be a weird one, you can put your hand right in front of her knee and be like, "Don't hit my hand when you start your squat." I would be really curious, and Justin, at some point, get another little clip of like maybe doing that and just let's see the difference. But I do think that would help tremendously, especially on the weight distribution in the feet. What's something else here?
Her chest collapse forward.
I have a new favorite cue for that. What would you guys cue that? What would you say?
I like to say, show me the logo that's on your shirt.
That could be a good one. I actually used that the other day in a snatch for somebody, and it worked pretty good. I heard one the other day from Nicole Christensen. Don't let your shoulders go in front of your feet. And it's been, can't really say my favorite cue. It's been my favorite thought process when I'm squatting. I feel like it has made the world of a difference. That statement she said, like, we've got a PVC pipe back here. What is she also doing by that statement?
Keeping her chest up.
Keeping your chest up. But she just also taught balance of the frontal plane without even getting remotely jargony, keeping it extremely simple. And she's like, that's what, as a coach, like she's also looking for. So it's not just like, where's the chest going? She's also going to look, where is that barbell in relation to this line up and that frontal plane with the feet? And like, I would say shoulders probably lined up with the toes. So that thought would be a really good one. But the butt back and down, like you said, and then thinking about keeping the shoulders behind, not getting in front of the feet, I think that would make a big difference. It's gonna feel like some work. Like that's gonna like be, me and her are probably saying like when I'm doing that in my air squats, or especially if I put a PVC pipe back here, I've got to like actively think of those things every single time. They don't come naturally. Not so ridiculous.
So what if, because I feel like her femur, like that part of her, like above her knee to her waist is kind of long.
Her leg.
Yeah, like should she maybe widen her stance just a tad and push her knees further out so she can get
I
further?
do think it's hard to tell with the stance, to be honest, because it's so profile. Like I would want maybe like a 45 to like really see that. So I'm not really sure in relation to where she's at, like if I could confidently say that. Um, but I do think like really aggressively driving the knees out in both cases would be a good thing to apply. I would start with like the hips back and down, and then I would just start to
Yeah.
layer things as they got better. But the knees are for sure going to be a part of this. On this one, why the simple reason I think we know why does this one suddenly look so much better? Like simple reason is we're giving more range of motion, more flexion in the ankles by elevating the feet, right? But when you say she has the fault of initiating the knees and that butt really doesn't go as back and then down as we would like it to, when we elevate them, that allows that to break at the knees more and be able to stay upright because now they have more range of motion because of the ankles. So when you look at this, it instantly looks better because it kind of hides that fault that's happening here. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
For a long time, when I test my ankle range of motion, it's not bad. And I remember one day squatting in front of JT. I was doing back squats. JT said, "Man, your ankles are really flexible." Like, he was just looking me in the bottom, and I thought it was crazy because I'm like, man, I'm so immature. Like I'm falling forward. There's no way my ankles are flexible. But testing them, they don't come out egregious. Like one of them is a little short, but other than that, I have good flexion in the ankles. I would elevate my heels, and I'm like, oh, look at this. I can stay upright. It is my ankles. And the point of me telling the story is elevating them just like helped me kind of hide the fact that I was basically dropping straight down. And I was dropping straight down because I was so conscious and trying so hard to stay upright and to not have any flexion that I was like not wanting to have any kind of like hinge at all, even though I needed to have a little bit of it. So like looking at this, like it's not always going to be the ankles. It can be addressing a different fall, like Elise picked up with the hips back and down. That would drive it. Does that make sense? I would say that was confusing to me for the last like 3 years.
So you think that, I mean, I guess we would have to test her again without those plates under her feet, initiating her butt back and down.
I'm not saying it's going to get perfect by any means, but I do think like starting to apply and really working those types of things, we can get there, if not very close. And a really good example is like at the level 1 course, and they throw somebody on the wall. All of a sudden, they're fighting for their damn life on that wall. But all of a sudden, they're doing that squat therapy and they're where you want them to be. So you go, okay, the hardware and what's happening in the body, it's there. We just have to get them there without like props. I think it's a really tough thing to do, like especially just in class and every day at the gym, because like you guys remember what that feels like at the level one when you're holding the bottom of the squat and the trainer's there coaching you and you're pushing your knees out, and you're pulling your chest up, and you're like, I'm starting to shake and I need to break, and you're not breaking. Like it's a hard thing to do. But it's just like goes to show that like we can get a lot of times very close to it without like the props. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I mean, I know we've gone over this like many times, but because it may not be the ankle, may not be the ankles, it could be maybe their hamstrings are tight, right? Or their hips are tight.
Thinking their hips.
Like, remind me, how can you tell if it's your hamstrings that are tight?
I mean, I think you would literally have
Or
to
you
like,
just have to test them and
you'd have
see.
You have
to
to do
test
a
them
full assessment, yeah.
to really know.
So,
Like a good example is when you watch somebody do an overhead squat. Like Glassman had the thing, like the overhead squat is like this mobility assessment that you can look at somebody and just do. But then at the end of the day, if you really needed to figure out what's going to be what, you do have to test those things because you see somebody that struggles and you go, boom, shoulders. And then maybe it's not shoulders. Maybe the
right.
shoulders are like mine and I can hyperextend them and it's my ankles. So you would actually have to break it down.
So, but like obviously I haven't taken the L3 yet, but would there be a question that say like, what could this possibly be? And let's say they have, you know, ankles, hamstrings or whatever, would I just choose all of them? It could be one of these. Like, would that be sort of,
I mean, you might have a question on that. I don't know, to be honest, but
but technically it would be all of the above because you don't know, you would have
it,
to test that.
yeah, technically, that's why I'm like, I don't know that they would even maybe ask that, but I'm not gonna say they
Okay.
would, I'm not gonna say
Right.
they wouldn't. What I will say is I think Todd Akuto said this. He was like, stop blaming mobility for bad movement.
Yeah.
Now, it comes into play and we know it comes into play. But also I think a lot of times, you know, we're very different. We're very immersed into this and we're very involved into this and we want to move well and we know, you know, what we need to work on mobility wise. But a lot of times, like the everyday, I'm just coming to class, that's the first thing they usually rip off as an excuse. And the reality is they can work to get there and they can improve their movement. Not saying it's going to be perfect, but I can give them the better thumbs up at least, keep working on it without making mobility as a total excuse. So I think you always have to have that in mind that you can't just be like, oh, that person has bad mobility, and you're actually just excusing yourself as the coach from coaching them and improving their movement. Because if I really want to make the argument, if you know I take her and I put her into the bottom of the squat and I have her really drive her knees out and I have her wiggle her toes, like she's doing mobility. Like we're
Yeah.
literally working on what is going to help this movement get better from a hardware point of view and the brain, a software point of view with the brain talking to the muscle. So if mobility is truly an excuse, like technically you should embrace some of those things moving form. Does that like all kind of make sense with that?
Yeah, I guess I'm just overthinking it.
Yeah,
So-
don't let it overcloud your coaching to improve their movement too.
Another thing too, guys, is like, you know, again, like to figure out what the problem is, you know, there should be an assessment done, like a functional movement screening. But just going back to the ankles too, like if you can't get in a full squat and it looks like it's an ankle issue, it might actually be an anterior tib weakness issue because the anterior tib does a big part in your squat to make sure you can get down to full depth. So, because if you can't, like, the anterior tib does dorsiflexion of your ankles, right? So when you go down, you need to stay in your toes. You need to control like your toes staying down. The anterior tib helps out a lot with that in your squat.
Like
So
pulling the ankle into flexion.
yes. So just, you know, it could be mobility, it could be muscle weaknesses and back imbalances. It could be just the neurological connection's not there because they've never done it before. So they can't, that mind to muscle connection has not clicked on yet because they haven't done it. So, you know,
Yeah, that clicked from the anterior tibialis. Because when you do a squat against a rig and you go side to side, you feel it there.
yeah.
Duh.
So
Yeah, and if you really think about it, like if someone asked me and they were like, I have tight hips, I have tight hips, I have tight ankles, I have 5 minutes to do mobility every day, and just give me one exercise to do every day, I'm gonna give them probably a squat hold, right?
yep, 100%.
So like when you really break it down to that, like all the things Elise just said, like it could be, the muscle's not firing, like from a neurological point of view, it could be weakness. We just need to take this joint through a full range of motion. Like all of those things are going to get solved by good functional movement, right? Is it going to be easy? No, it's going to be for sure hard sometimes to get through those movements and to really like, for me, when I'm trying to do a perfect squat, like it's a lot of brain power as well as very physical for me because, I don't have a great squat. So it kind of just really does go back to trying to really coach it. That's not to say that using things like elevating the heels or, maybe I'm going to load her in the front with some load like a goblet squat or a plate hold. Those are 100% still necessary because they're going to help still strengthen and they're going to still be taking the joints through the range of motion and things like that. So they're to be used when it's appropriate for sure. But what I want to drive home is like not to use them as a crutch all the time. Like our goal is to be getting off those things or dwindling them down over time. Chad Vaughn has a control. He has his barbell mobility, and he has an ankle one where you put a 10-pound plate on the floor, and you do it. He wants to do it barefoot. You kind of like put the arches of your feet and the heel like on the plate, and you do these squats. And every squat has like a 4-second hold in the bottom, and then I think like tier 1 is like you're doing it with a counterbalance. So you're super, super upright. It's really, really easy. And then like the next week is like half a counterbalance. The next week is against your body. The next week is body weight. And then it goes from that 10-pound plate to, I think it's like foot 5. So it's a smaller increase. And you do that wave again. And then you go to no plates and you do that wave again. And the goal being is he's weaning you. He's using the implements to get you into the position you want. Well, and then you're fighting and doing those holds, and he's just weaning you to eventually a barefoot air squat that looks the same as that first week when you did it. So when using this, like give yourself like a progression or like a linear plan to have that go in the direction it wants. Anything else you guys want to add, say?
Stop overthinking, D.
Yeah, you definitely overthink a bit. Yeah, when you're looking at somebody move, thought number 1 should not be, oh, they don't have the mobility, let's go to plan B. Let's coach them. And we know, we're all smart people on this call. We know when it's not going to be appropriate to try to hold somebody in a position and coach them. If I've got a guy that comes in and he goes to put the PVC pipe overhead and it's overhead squats and he's like here and it's all the way in front of him and he's 65 years old, I know I'm not going to coach his shoulders in the position. Like those are the obviouses. Like those are going to be there, and we're still going to change things. And mobility is the reason for changing things. But don't let it be your like.
No, I mean, I wasn't thinking it like that way. I guess I was thinking about test-wise, like how detailed would they be on a test? Because, like when some of these articles that I read, and I know you always remind me, like, we're not doctors. We don't have to think about like everything specifically, like the body, every ligament or whatever that they talk about. But like some of these articles are so detailed in that sense that I'm like, what am I supposed to be thinking about? Am I supposed to be learning what each joint is called? Or am I like, that's, I guess, what confuses me and makes me overthink what I'm studying.
You have to also consider too, like if I'm gonna teach you how the hip works, and I want you to learn the fact that the hip goes into flexion, and it also has some rotation in the squat, and then like when the knees flexing with it, how that's gonna change. I'm like all the above, right?
Yeah.
I still am going to have to explain a level of what muscles are in the hips and
Of
what
course.
joints are in the hips. Because if you don't have any of that, like you just don't have a foundation. Does that make
Right.
sense?
But am I supposed to know every single detail, like for,
Here's a good example. Here's a better example. You need to know that carbohydrates are going to get turned into glycogen and go into your and glycogen stores, and you're going to use them as energy,
yeah.
right? What you don't need to know is how the physiological process on a cellular level
Okay.
of how that's happening.
Okay. Because that's where I get all confused and I'm like, what the fuck?
No, understand like see at least the meat and potatoes of what you need to understand, and don't overstress the seasoning. Think about understanding what's for dinner, not the seasoning I put on the meat and the vegetables.
Okay. All right. All right. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, and
Because otherwise I feel so dumb.
I'm not saying you shouldn't like strive to learn all those things.
Of
It's like
course.
because like in having these calls with you guys, like even me, there's been topics I understand, but then I end up diving a little deeper. Like when we talked about the mobility and it was the outward rotation of the hip, right? And to me that makes sense. I'm pushing my knees out. And then I'm like, why when I hit the bottom of my squat, do my knees and people's knees have this collapse in, and it's not an activation or a weakness? Because I didn't know there's also an internal rotation that happens after a certain degree of flexion. So it's like eventually learning those things is going to make you a better coach, a better trainer, a better athlete. So you should strive for it, but like you don't have to go write a dissertation on it after you read the article. Keep it when in doubt, keep it simple.
Okay.
I think we're about at an hour, so we'll call today a day. You guys have anything else before we wrap it up?
No.
No, I'll give one little feedback on that video though. Dee's correct. She has long femur bones, and so the big thing in this video that I was trying to get her to do, and she does it actually in both clips, where she's really usually egregious, is that she folds her torso almost fully in half, and
Like it becomes like a good morning almost.
yes, almost exactly like a good morning. So the plates were kind of to try to see if that was going to fix anything at all. But she did a good job on the very first one, not doing that. I mean, I was instructing her to brace the core. I was trying to give her everything I could think of to not fold the torso, and she ended up doing it pretty good.
So
The plates seemed like they made it even better. So I was like, all right, plates.
I agree. With that being said, because I know exactly, like I've seen people that have that squat. Both of these are for sure like huge, like better improvement. And then it's just going to be continuing to fight that. With the femurs, like you was talking about, like it's hard to see the stance. The stance being a hair wider definitely can help. I just didn't. I don't want to be like widen her stance when I'm not 100% sure. And the knees out hard, I think will help that situation that you're working with her on.
Yeah, because I have a few people that have kind of that body type. So when I saw it, I just thought about these people and I'm like, fuck, like sometimes like I've done their feet, I've done so much and they still have that forwardness.
And
But
that potentially always is going to be a little bit of a thing.
correct. But it does eventually get better because there's this one girl, she's been doing this for maybe like a year and a half, and her squat has improved. But it's because she's done it over and over and over and over and over and over
Being
again.
very diligent.
So yeah.
Consistency is definitely king.
But one more thing I'll say about this.
Go ahead, Justin, and then I'll say my last thing.
is that we talk about like mobility being an excuse. Like she actually has like extreme mobility in her thoracic spine. So as her torso folds, I used to cue her like chest up, and she's
She would
keeping her
be able
chest
to.
up, but she's still got her rib cage basically on her
Yeah.
thighs at that point. And I'm like, oh, that cue's not working for me. So
Like the hip flexion stays. The chest up doesn't improve by the hip
yes,
flexion.
Yeah.
She does like a cobra.
she's like the Superman in
Yeah, yeah.
what we were talking
Yeah.
about earlier. She's basically Supermaning. um,
Yeah, I
So
can
that I
totally
mean that's a good example too of like mobility not being an excuse, but actually in the opposite direction.
right.
I'm trying to think, what could you say? You could say maybe hips down, and hips down may change that angle a little
But
bit.
also, but maybe like also pushing her knees out, that may kind of bring her up a little bit because she's like focusing on
It,
squeezing her
it may
butt
give,
out.
yeah, and like in the thought of the knees out and potentially the stance is it'll just give her more room in her
Right,
hips
right,
to
right,
be
right,
able
right,
to
right.
stay more upright.
Right.
Some of the mobilities, there's a mobility at Chad Vaughn also where he has someone hold the rig and they're in the bottom of a squat. And his directions that no one gets this right is like you're not just holding the rig out, you're walking your hands down to the bottom of the rig. And your hands are on the very, very bottom, and you're pulling your hips, you're pulling the rig, and you're pulling your hips to the rig. So that's what makes me think of like
Yeah.
like dropping the butt will also pull the torso up.
That makes sense.
And when you do it, you feel yourself. You're like very, very upright because your hips are like more under you almost.
Totally.
Um,
I love that
but
stretch. I do it all the time.
it's a good, yeah, you do actually. It's a great stretch. But like if she's good morning, you did a great job with that torso, especially here. I think that's a nice improvement. With that. Damn, what was the other thing I was gonna say? I thought I would remember, but I forgot. It must have not been that important. If I remember it, I'll text it over to you guys. All right. Well, I don't have anything else for the day. Call it a day.
Cool.
I
Bye, guys.
will. I'll see you guys on Tuesday.
All right. Bye.
Right.